In this video, we'll be discussing if Kanye West has had a hair transplant, but 2016 is where I think it changes. In 2003, at the age of 26, you can see in this photo that he has visible frontotemporal recession and hairline thinning. But this is actually how many of my patients look after a hair transplant. This was him at 26. So I don't think at this stage that he's had a hair transplant. I think that this is just natural aging process and natural recession that we're seeing at the frontotemporal angles. In 2004, at the age of 27, to me, the hairline and the hair in general looks unchanged. You can see on the right side that the frontotemporal area is actually more receded than the left. And this is true in about 90% of patients, where the right side recedes more than the left. That's been studied in our literature. In 2005, at the age of 28, to get a clean line on his temple, he's now had to locate it more laterally since he's lost some of that anterior temple hair. And I'm going to draw that out for you guys. So his hairline used to be, the temple aspect of it used to be closer to here, but since he was losing some of those hairs, in order to keep the line of the hair nice and straight, he's had to locate it more laterally because the hair in this medial portion of the temple has become a bit more irregular, and so it wouldn't have been as straight of a line as if he had located it more laterally, which is what he's done. Moving on to 2006, at the age of 29, I don't see any major changes occurring to Kanye West's hair. 2007, at the age of 30, it looks like he has this nice cool fade going from the front of the hair to the back and from the sides as well, from the front to the back, but this is also highlighting the thinness of his hair at the hairline. 2008, age 31, I don't really see any major changes at this point. In 2009, at the age of 32, he's sporting some longer hair, but otherwise it looks like it's quite stable. You can really see the discrepancy between the thinner hairline, especially at the temples there, compared to the rest of his head when he has longer hair like this. I wonder if at this point anyone's recommended to Kanye West to get on some medical therapy for his hair. As we talk about in our other videos, first-line medical therapy includes minoxidil and finasteride. It could be that Kanye West began taking those, I'm not sure, but it would have been a wise move in order to preserve his existing hair as best as possible. In 2010, at the age of 33, I don't really see any major changes occurring. Same in 2011 when he's 34 and 35. In 2013, at the age of 36, it looks to me like he has even weaker temples and the frontotemporal areas are continuing to thin out, and there's just this major density difference, and I think you can see it here. And I kept going back and forth wondering if he had had a hair transplant at this stage, but I realized that most likely this was just his natural thinning occurring. I don't think that this is a transplanted result. 2014, age 37, no major changes. You can really appreciate here that peaking that's occurring at the frontotemporal areas. 2015, age 38, a similar type of appearance. But 2016 is where I think it changes. He's 39 years old, and compared to the last image, it looks to me like the frontotemporal areas have been lowered and strengthened, and the temples seem to me to be sharpened. And let me draw that out for you. So this is 2015, and you can see the overall shape of his hairline going kind of up this way, and you can see the recession at the frontotemporal areas just like that. So notice the shape of that, and I'll kind of draw it out on the other side roughly with my finger here. So now if you look here in 2016, this region here at the corners have definitely changed. There's more of this sort of boxy type of look, and there's less recession visible. So if I draw this line, you can see here how it's totally changed shape. And so to me, it looks like these regions in here and these regions in here on both sides were transplanted. So I think that Kanye West at this point in 2016, between 2015 and 2016, had a hair transplant. My guess is that it was approximately 800 grafts, probably FUE, as I'll show you in the images coming up, again, this is just speculation, a guess, but it doesn't look like there were a ton of grafts placed. And when I look at his central hairline, it looks like it's in a similar location to where it was before. So I don't think they went across the entire hairline. I think the emphasis was really in the corners. That means the temples and the frontotemporal areas. And my guess is about 800 FUE grafts could have gotten him there. If I were designing the hairline for Kanye West into that corner where I think he may have had the hair transplant, I would have created a lot of regularity along the hairline border. And that's sometimes something that we do differently in other patients where you're trying to create that appearance of differences right at the hairline so that it starts to look more natural in terms of irregularity. But for the way that Kanye West wears his hair and the lineup that he creates, it would make more sense to be a bit more regular with the orientation of the graft placement. And that's something that we would have talked about with him and figured out if I were, doing his procedure. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. So in this image, you can see that there's an area again in that corner that just looks very different from the surrounding hairs. So I think that that's the area that was transplanted, and that's where I got that 800 graft number. So this region right in there looks different to me. It looks like a transplanted type of result, and that should be about 400 to maybe top 600 grafts per side, likely closer to 400. Because of the approximate number of 400 grafts per side, we're getting that 800 graft total count. Then when you look at this image, I wonder here if he's had FUE done. I looked through many images from the back of his head, including when he had those interesting haircuts, and I didn't see any linear types of scars. Kanye does have a few folds in the back of his head, which are very normal, and many people have those, and I just don't see any scars hiding out in there. But I do see in this image that, to me, it looks like there are some dot-like scars throughout the area that we'd usually consider a safe donor zone for FUE and for FUT. So I think he had an FUE procedure, if I had to guess. Okay, these are the FUE dot scars that I'm seeing appearing in this location. Let me draw it for you so you can see it better. These spots, to me, look like dot scars from FUE. 2017, age 40, he has that longer hair that's covering up the thinning in the central region, frontotemporal and temple. Even though he's had the transplant, as we talk about in many of my other videos, there's oftentimes a difference between the density of a transplanted zone and the natural hair. Usually, transplanted areas are less dense than natural hair. 2018, at the age of 41, I don't see any major changes. Same in 2019. And 2020, I think nothing has really changed. 2021, he had a really interesting mask that he put on that made him look a little bit more similar to me without hair. So in 2021 though, I don't think that there have been any further changes to Kanye West's hair. So let's do a summary of the changes that have occurred from what I can tell. I think Kanye West has had one hair transplant, about 800 grafts FUE to the frontotemporal areas and the temples to keep that hairline looking sharp. Now, what would the price have been for a procedure like that? Well, usually grafts will run from $6 to $10 per graft in the United States. It could be cheaper in some parts of the country, and it also is cheaper, of course, in some other countries. Some clinics will have a fixed price for any number of grafts, so that's something to keep in mind. Some will charge flat rates of $10,000 or $8,000 or $20,000, whatever it is. So that's one kind of thing to think about when you're looking at pricing for a hair transplant. And other places will have a graft minimum that they'll charge for, or a price minimum, and after that there'll be additional grafts charged. Since you like this video, click here to find out if Elon Musk has had a hair transplant.